global workforce to what is now called the gig economy. In fact, when our IT companies were not able to grow and employ a lot of the skilled, educated, tech-savvy youth, they became the second largest online worker marketplace in the world. Let that sink in. We talk so much about the negativity, the challenges of this country. The young people of this country did not wait for you and me to step up and do anything for them. They bought a laptop, they teamed up with a friend in their garage, and they became part of a global workforce. Pakistan has close to 400,000 online freelancers who make between $5 to $10 every day doing what they do. And this is not just people who can code, people who can program. These are people who can maintain ledgers, people who can design logos, people who can write English content, people who can do social media promotion, people who've done degrees in architecture and draftsmen, people who know radiology and can read x-rays remotely. This online freelancing, where skilled workers from Pakistan can become part of a global marketplace of workers, is the key for the growth in Pakistan. And the good news I have for you is that they did not wait for you and me to step up and do anything for them. They had the skill, they had the education and the drive to become part of this global marketplace. And Pakistan is now the second largest in the world in this global marketplace. There is no other industry in which Pakistan can claim to be even in the top 5 in the world, except this online freelancing industry. Close to 400,000 people registered on various online platforms, out of which about 150,000 people do online freelancing regularly. Same for the IT industry. The IT industry has grown, but we have made their life exceptionally difficult. They've grown almost despite the government. We keep changing our tax regimes. We make it really difficult for them to bring their money into Pakistan and spend that money on international ventures. We've made it really difficult for them to hire software developers. We've made it very difficult for them to get international large buyers to travel down to Pakistan and buy their skill in software. We've made it really difficult for them to export their IT skilled manpower in what is called onshoring. These are all things that government can help with. You look at all the other countries where the IT industry has grown, they don't require much from us. They don't require any subsidies. They just require a conducive business environment. And that's the least the government should be able to do. So we drew up a wish list of things from the IT industry. And I was so pleased to read it because it is all doable. These are little things that we should be able to do in policy, in rules, in conversations and decisions within the government. No one has to take money out of their pocket and give it to the IT industry to grow, unlike all the other industries in Pakistan. So for instance, the IT industry currently officially stands at $2.6 billion per year. I can bet my shoe on this, that the IT industry currently is $3.5 billion. Why? Because they're forced to keep a lot of their revenue outside of Pakistan. And why not? If you make it so difficult for them to pay for their marketing teams, for their sales teams, for their cloud hosting, for little acquisitions of developers outside of Pakistan, and we don't let them spend dollars from Pakistan for money that they brought in, there is all the incentive to park it outside of Pakistan. So I had this conversation, this argument with people in the government, and people pushed back and said, well, all the other industries can do it too. Why are you so worried about the IT industry? The key difference between the IT industry and all the other traditional industries is that it's a service-based industry. There is no bill of import. There are no goods being sent to Pakistan. It is very convenient for them to park their money outside of Pakistan, which is what everyone from the IT industry sitting here is doing. Smaller companies are doing it more than bigger companies. So at this point, the IT industry doesn't quite stand at $2.6 billion. It stands at $3.5 billion. And we really must do everything in our power to make sure that they bring all the money back to Pakistan. We facilitate them that they're able to spend this money internationally without having to go through 50 approvals from the government. I'm here to attend this conference, but also to meet Governor State Bank tomorrow, to finally start this conversation on how we can have dollar retention accounts, where you can keep all your money in dollars, where you can then spend this in dollars using digital instruments and online banking, and that you're able to accrue interest on these accounts similar to Russian digital accounts. So that there is no incentive for you to keep your dollars outside of Pakistan on a 1% interest, but instead bring it to Pakistan. We'll give you your cost of capital, bring those dollars back, and make it easy for you to spend it internationally. So there is no logical reason for you to not bring your money back. So that's something we can do in 2 months, as long as my friends in the IT industry then step up and take that opportunity and make that happen. Because I'm going to make my argument based on this promise, that if you facilitate us, you allow this exceptional treatment of the IT service industry, I can show you a jump from $2.6 to $3.5 billion in a couple of months. So help me do it. That's the reason I've come here. I'm going to go advocate your case tomorrow, but help me do it. Don't keep your money outside of Pakistan. This country needs every dollar it can get from its productive service-based industries led by the IT industry in Pakistan. The second thing we want to be able to do is to train lots of manpower for you. Now, the equation, the mathematics of IT exports is really simple. For every 100,000 software developers or billable resources that we add to the IT industry, we increase our exports by $2 billion. The typical yield for a software developer in Pakistan is about $20,000 per year. That's the typical yield. You add 100,000 software developers to the IT industry, that will give you a boost of $2 billion per year. We need to train those 100,000 people. Guess what? Our universities graduate close to 35 to 40,000 IT and IT-like degrees every year. So this is IT, this is computer engineering, this is software engineering, and so on and so forth. Combined, we train about 35 to 40,000 people every year. People like Asif, where is Asif? People like Asif Peer, people like Salim Ghori, people like Fatima, only employ what? 2,500 of those. So the IT industry cannot employ more than 10% of what we graduate from the universities. Where are the rest of them going? And what is wrong with their skill set? This seems like a problem we should be able to fix. The government spends literally billions of rupees in various training programs and boot camps and this and that, and we can't seem to fix this problem. So my goal is to put things in motion such that we train 100,000 people who graduate from various universities to become billable resources for the IT industry. For every 100,000 that we add, we make $2 billion additional for IT exports. So here's my math now. Here's the equation that's sticking in my head. From 2.6 we go to 3.5 by fixing your problems to bring your capital back to Pakistan. From 3.5 we go to 5.5 by training and adding 100,000 skilled workers into the IT workforce. And then we move on to the freelancers. These are kids who've done well despite us. They didn't ask for our permission. They went to work. They figured out that they could be part of the international gig economy. Some of them knew how to make a logo. Some of them knew how to write English. Some of them knew how to make a website or maintain a WordPress template. These are skills that they picked up on their own. Most of them didn't even do an IT degree, right? Between them, they are the second largest online workforce in the world. What have we done for them? Not much. Here is how we have actually treated them poorly. The freelancers cannot easily monetize their skills. There is no PayPal in Pakistan, no Stripe payment gateway. Shouldn't be that hard to convince PayPal, for the second largest online workforce, to have access to a payment instrument like PayPal. That's very, very high priority for me. enable PayPal payments in Pakistan, enable a Stripe payment gateway in Pakistan. We're not talking about small opportunity here. This is the second largest online workforce in the world. If PayPal is not excited about that, God knows what else excites them. So I certainly want to go to them and vociferously argue for my online freelancers and online e-commerce companies that they could really benefit if they had access to PayPal and Stripe. The other place where we poorly treat our online freelancers is that because there's no PayPal, there's no Stripe, and these are literally two kids in a room, our banks refuse to open a bank account for them because they don't treat them as an organized business. These kids have to get all their payments into a friend's account overseas, pool that money for months, and then bring it back as domestic remittance. You talk to anyone in the government, they'll tell you that the exports that happen through online freelancing is maybe $200 million, maybe $400 million. Well, it is a lot more than that. They're not bringing that money to Pakistan, and even if they do, you see that as remittances. So there are times when the government wakes up and claims that remittances have magically gone up. These are not remittances that have gone up. There is no reason why remittances would overnight go up. This is your skilled workers beginning to benefit from the remote gig economy and finally bringing a fraction of that money back home that the country begins to see as remittances through Western Union and God knows what else. Because you've not given them any other instrument, any other framework to bring that money back home. And two, when they bring it back as remittances or as income, how much income tax do we charge them at the same rate that income tax is charged? We treat the IT industry at 0.25%. We treat these freelancers as income tax. They pay 10, 20, 30%. Why not treat them as the IT industry also? They're part of us. They're not part of the formal organized IT industry. These are two kids in a room. Why treat them discriminately? So therefore, we're going to extend the same policy to online freelancers. We're going to come up with a mechanism through which we can register online freelancers. And then we would extend the same tax regime to online freelancers also, 0.25%. They can get their payment via PayPal, Stripe, through formal payment channels, and once they do that, registered with us, they fall into this very favorable 0.25% tax regime. And so that they can now continue to wield their magic that they do on their own and bring this money back. Finally, and again on the freelancer gig economy, and I'm very excited about this. By the way, we started working on this on a program called e-Rozgar, again about 10 years ago. And this happened in a happenstance conversation. I was sitting in my office, and the guy who was running Plan 9 for me brought a young guy to my office. At the time, he was studying at government college. I still vividly remember that conversation. And he said, and I had many DGs and very important high officials of my organization within the room, and this kid walks in, I think about 17 or 18 years old, and he said, I'm doing maths, stats, economics in government college. And I make $4,000 per month. And this was more than any of us in that room because we're all government salaried people. So everyone got very excited about this and said, wow, that's a lot of money. And this is the time when dollar used to be about 100 rupees or something, right? So I asked him, what is it that you do? Because you're doing maths, stats, and economics. This doesn't look like a computer science degree. So how do you make $4,000? He said, I've learned to make WordPress themes, and I maintain them on Theme Forest. That's what I do. I made WordPress themes, I maintain them on Theme Forest. I am a designer, I can design well. I'm actually not an IT guy. And he was doing $4,000 per month. I was very excited by that, so I asked him, are there other people like you who are doing this? He said, what? You don't know about this? I said, no. He said, there are 150,000 freelancers in Pakistan. At the time, Pakistan used to be the 4th largest contributor to the online freelancing marketplace. I said, that sounds like and shame on me. There's someone who's trying to run this agenda in Punjab. I'm not even aware of this. So I said, what can I do for you? And he said, well, we make $5, $10 per day. Most freelancers, that's what we do. We don't have money to buy an expensive laptop. We have no money to invest in a generator. We have no money to pay for air conditioning or uninterrupted internet. Can you provide us a facility where we can go and work? We can just show up, There's a desk ready for us with a computer, internet, uninterrupted electricity. That's all I need. I have the skill, I know how to sell it. So we made something called Tech Hub. I don't know whether there are any PITB people here or not, but they'll tell you the story in more glory. That place was reserved for the chairman's office, which was my office. So I said, to hell with it. We're going to convert that room into Tech Hub. That's what we called it. We bought some bean bags and computers and chairs and declared it a space where freelancers can come and work. And they don't owe us anything, just do what you do. 3 months fast forward, the manager of that Tech Hub comes to me and said, do you know they're doing about $200,000 per month of exports in that room? They just show up randomly, they do the work that they do, they go home. Then I called them, I met with them and I asked, what's your big problem now? And they said, we can't write proposals. You know, we're doing all these degrees, but we can't really, we're not very good at English, we're not very good at communication. Can you give us a couple of MBAs to help us write our bids for Upwork and for Elance and for Top Talent and Crossover and so on and so forth? And that's what we did. And Tech Hub continued to work, continued to grow. And then eventually, one day, a government project was brought to my table. This is how e-Rozgar happened. And the project was to do internship program in the government. Government of Punjab would set aside about 2 billion rupees every year to do internships for youth. Now, these are the kind of programs that never really translate into employment. You get interns, God knows where they go, which industry they work in. So I said, we're not going to run the internship program this year. I went to the chief minister, who eventually became the prime minister, and said, give me this money. Give me 1/4 of this money, 50 crore rupees, and I will set up 40 e-Rozgar centers in government colleges and universities and train 10,000 freelancers for you. This would be a space where they can come and work, they'll get trained with this skill, and they'll begin to make money. And just recently, someone from PITB reached out to me that they've trained now 19,000 freelancers from these facilities, and people working there have made more than 8.3 billion rupees. And when I used to go to these universities and colleges to inaugurate these centers, the ones that really excited me were the all-female colleges. These were girls who were studying in these colleges and universities. Many of them had their parents take loans to pay for their education. And they would make this money to pay back those loans. They would make this money to support their family. And they would make this money to make a case for themselves to become first-class citizens in the labor market in Pakistan. And that was music to my ears. I would see these girls, you know, with excitement, with real glint in their eyes. And we had like 5 of these all-female e-Rozgar centers. What I learned from this experience was that training alone for freelancers is not sufficient. You need to give them a space where they can come and make $5 to $10 per day using laptops, electricity, internet, and a place that you provide for them. Pakistan has a lot of unutilized real estate right now. What can government do to incentivize the private sector through interest-free loans, tax breaks, and so on and so forth, so that we convert all these plazas and all this real estate into e-Rozgar centers in Pakistan? My goal this year is to convert all these unutilized real estate, waiting for some tenant to come in and rent out this space, to convert it into a co-working space for freelancers. We'll give them interest-free loans, we give them tax breaks on property taxes, rental property taxes, so that they get about 2 years of unshackled free run. Convert these places into co-working places for 500,000 online workers, each worker conservatively making only $5,000 a year. That's $2.5 billion. So what I intend to do is create a space for 500,000 freelancers by incentivizing private sector to convert their real estate into freelancing spaces for these youngsters. Give them tax breaks, give them interest-free loans, help them do the investment that they need to convert their space into a co-working space so that they can begin to host these freelancers. They can charge a small rental fee to these freelancers. This could turn into a real business. All the co-working spaces in Pakistan are doing well in terms of the demand, in terms of how they're able to monetize their space. So 500,000 spaces, 500,000 desks for online freelancers in Pakistan, each making conservatively at least $5,000 a year, contributing $2.5 billion. So from 2.6, we went to 2.6, we went to 3.5. From 3.5, we went to 7.5. From 7.5, we go to 10. And that's the plan. The plan is to work with the IT industry, help them do what they do without hounding them with tax notices, making it difficult for them to bring their money in and money out. Train an IT workforce of 100,000 additional developers so they can improve their exports and get access to better skilled manpower. Help the startups, and I'll come back to that in a moment, and help these online freelancers so they can bring additional revenue to Pakistan. Now back to startups, which is close to my heart. I kept that at the end because I get blamed for focusing too much on startups. I have a checkered past of doing many startups. That's who I am. This is something I do on the side occasionally. But for startups, the biggest problem for all the startups in Pakistan right now is follow-on capital. There was a glut of money that came in 2021, 2022, about $700 million. This is when the Fed rates were very favorable to PE funds, private equity funds, almost free money in US that you could take and invest in risky ventures. Tech is a risky investment. Buying real estate is not a risky investment. So to develop an appetite for risky investments, you need to make the cost of capital lower. That's what the US did. Fed's rates going up, globally, the VC cash flow powder has dried up. There is no money, even in US, for early stage startups anymore. In Pakistan, we have about 100 odd startups that have already raised money, another 200 that are very investable or have raised small seed capital. They'll all die unless at this point we can radically do something different to ensure follow-on capital for them. They need to stay afloat. They need to have a runway of a year and a half, 2 years before the international VC market opens up again. Once you think about this equation, what can government do to de-risk the venture capital in Pakistan? Now look at Pakistan. I worked as a VC for a small fund that I used to run before this gig. And here's the equation. The equation is Pakistan, tech, VC. All three big risks for an international VC. Why should they come invest in Pakistan? Why should they invest in tech? Why should they do venture capital when they can get a lot of stress assets in Pakistan? Okay. To de-risk that, Pakistan needs to set up a fund of funds. This won't be the first in the world. Many countries have done it. My favorite example is the Yozma fund that Israel has. Now the fund of fund steps in, talks to the large VCs globally and says, we are going to underwrite your risk for investments in Pakistani startups. You put in $1, I'll put in 30 cents. Take my 30 cents, invest them on my behalf. The government shouldn't be in the business of investing in startups, but we could enable private capital to be diverted to startups. And the best way to do it is to underwrite their risk. The risk is 20%, 30% investing in a tech startup as opposed to an asset class that is more secure. So government steps in and says, you bring in $100 million, Kleiner Perkins, I'll give you $30 million to invest on my behalf so you can underwrite your risk. And you have a bigger portfolio in Pakistan. So what we're going to do, and we are sitting on money that I think could be better utilized like this. There are many multilaterals, many institutional venture capitalists or funds that we are talking to at this point in time. That's what I've done all of last week. We need to move beyond incubation at this point. We need to ensure that we bring the large venture capital firms to this country, and the irritant, their hesitation at this point is the risk that they see associated with the Pakistan market. We will de-risk it. The government will step in, the government will provide for every $50 cents, 30 cents, for every $1 if need be, for them to come in and invest their money and our money on our behalf into our startups, and then make it easy for them to repatriate this money. So this fund of funds is the big idea that we're going to work on. It's also going to bring in a lot of investment in Pakistan. This country's had $700 million in a period of 2 years. My goal is to bring $1 billion in this next year, with the government stepping in and bringing top-tier VCs to Pakistan by de-risking their investment in startups here. There are two more things I want to say. I am tired, I'm sure you're bored also, but given that I have this forum, there are two other constituencies that I talk to. The telecom operators, I am aware of the problems that you have. I am also aware of the pain that the consumers have to go through because of very poor quality of service that they're forced to live with because of very little investment in the telecom infrastructure. It's not just a telecom operator. The government has to be equally blamed for this also. We have to incentivize them to invest in the telecom infrastructure. We also have to accelerate the auction of the unutilized spectrum in Pakistan. The entire telecom industry in Pakistan works on 273 megahertz of spectrum. That's it. 273 megahertz of spectrum for the entire telecom industry in Pakistan. And Pakistan is the 7th largest market in the world for telecom. Just one telecom operator in Australia uses 350 megahertz for comparison. So you live, all the consumers are forced to live on this bandwidth. We are going to double this bandwidth and auction another 300 megahertz of bandwidth, which is stuck in various spectrums right now. 700 megahertz, 1800 megahertz, 21, 23, 26, 3500 megahertz. All of this needs to be freed up. In the next 10 months, we're going to auction 300 megahertz of bandwidth, technology neutral, hopefully 5G, so that consumers in Pakistan can get twice the bandwidth that they're getting right now. And telecom players are incentivized to bring money, invest in the telecom infrastructure in Pakistan. We have one of the cheapest internet and cellular service in the world, but also one of the worst telecom and internet service in the world. We need to fix it at this point in time, and the government needs to step in, incentivize and accelerate the auction of the underutilized spectrum that this telecom industry is in dire need of. I also know about your issues with various tax agencies, with various promises we've made to the telecom industry in how taxation would be done, then reneging on those promises. I am fully aware of that. I'm going to advocate for your case. I'm going to advocate for the citizens of this country so that they get the best internet access in the world. That is the fuel for IT industry to grow. And we're going to advocate for you, and we're going to advocate for our service providers. Finally, Pakistan is the 7th largest market for cell phones in the world. We have 191 million cellular users in this country. And we import our cell phones. That just does not compute for me. The government can do just a little bit more than what it is doing right now to make it such that most of the cell phones are manufactured here. There was a lot of good work that was done in this sector 2 years ago. We now have 31 cellular manufacturers assembling units in Pakistan who are importing CKDs from elsewhere, assembling them in this country. 50 million, 5 crore mobile phones were assembled in this country in the last few years. They've created jobs for 40,000 skilled workers in this country. And they're just getting up to speed on wanting to export phones from this country. They've exported more than 100,000 phones already. What we need to do is come in and incentivize this industry. Globally, there are R&D investments that governments make it cheaper for you to manufacture the phone here. So there are two things we are going to do for the cell phone manufacturers here. One, I'm aware of your need to lower the cost for you to conduct your business, manufacture your phone, assemble your phones in Pakistan. We're going to give you the R&D investment that you are in desperate need of. We will certainly do that. I hope to work with PTA and the cellular operators to make it easy for cell phone financing in Pakistan. If you can go to the US and buy a contract-based phone as part of the contract, you sign a year contract, you get an iPhone. That's how you create demand for products. That's just good regulation. So we're going to enable cell phone financing in Pakistan. I've already spoken to Chairman PTA about this. There are two other things I need to be able to do to make that happen. Shortly, we'll enable contract-based phones or cell phone financing in Pakistan. This would substantially increase demand for higher-end phones, better phones, 3G, 4G phones in Pakistan. So you don't have to assemble just 2G phones. So we're going to help you increase demand for 3G, 4G higher-end phones in Pakistan through cell phone financing schemes. We are going to give you the R&D investment that you need to become globally competitive to make these phones here. And we are going to also then talk to you to not just assemble phones in Pakistan, but manufacture their components here. Now, this story is played out in and out for many years, decades in this country, where we have existed at the bottom of the food chain, importing CKDs and assembling them in this country. We have very little technical expertise. Most countries start out that way. In Thailand, someone who used to run a company called Quant out of MIT started assembling laptops, but because of their local deletion policy, 70% of the hard disks currently are made in Thailand, globally. 70% of the hard disks globally are made in Thailand. They assemble laptops, sure, that's how it started out, but then they specialized in a company. This is a country where we have a lot of lithium reserves. There's no reason we can't make lithium-ion batteries for cell phones. There is no reason we can't make screens in this country. You take all the R&D investment from us that you need. We'll enable you to become globally competitive. We'll make it easy for you to sell high-end phones in the domestic market. But please don't exist at the bottom of the food chain. Start making high-end electrical components that we can export. We'll start with batteries and screens in this country. I think that's very doable. So that's for my fourth constituency. From startups to the IT industry to the telecom operators to the handset manufacturers. Thank you for your patience. I've only been in this job for 2 weeks. And I've had very little sleep. I want to thank my team here. There's Additional Secretary Aisha, Junaid Saab, Asim, Bhatti Saab, I don't know his first name. It's only Babar. It's only been 2 weeks, Dr. Saab. So and Ali, and so on. So I've spent a lot of time with the team at the IT industry, IT ministry, and we're just getting our act together. It's not that good work has not happened before. Good work has happened in pockets all over the country. I want to acknowledge that. We want to build on that. I'm blessed with a great team. They're all super excited. We have meetings at 9, 10 p.m. and they're as energized as I am in these meetings. I'm very thankful to them. I have to run 2 ministries, so din ki 2 dihadiyan meri. So, I start early in the day. I finish one at 5, then I start the other one at 5 p.m. So, thank you for your cooperation. We have a very little time. This is a caretaker government. There is a clear finish line, only a few months. So, there is a sense of urgency. So, thank you everyone for being here. All your needs, all your requirements, your wish lists have been communicated to me. These are all doable things. We are here to make it happen for you. Please work with us. Increase the IT exports from 2.6 to 10 billion. I've given you a roadmap already. I'm going to certainly work as hard as possible to make that happen. I want you to do the same for me also. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll get Pakistan on the global map of IT. Thank you.
Thank you